I'm just going to give everybody a quick overview of what we're going to run through today. We're going to start with the category design overview. Christopher's going to run through that. I'm going to run through how to read and use the 22 laws of category design. So that's our new book that we just put out. Tell you a little bit more about that. Eddie is going to walk us through a workshop of how to frame, name, and claim a category. And then we're going to take some live questions on how to do that. And then our final part 4 is going to be an AMA with us. So we're going to be answering your questions. I will work on the chat and the Q&A in the meantime. We're going to run through the first 2 sections pretty quickly. We're going to spend the majority of the time on the workshop and the AMA. So just hold tight if you maybe have heard some of the initial stuff before. And if you're new to category design, this will be new to you. Also, just wanted to let everybody know that we are going to send out our AI worksheet at the end. I'll send it out after the webinar in an email along with this deck. So don't feel like you need to take notes and write a bunch of stuff down as we go. You'll get a copy of it afterwards in an email. And the reason why we created this was just we were really experimenting with using ChatGPT and AI as we were writing the book and coming up with the in-book exercises. And we thought it would be really helpful for people to just kind of see what we were doing and see our process and then be able to apply it to your own category and help you get your own outcomes.
Hey, so Kat,
yeah, go ahead.
Tell them where the artwork came from.
Yeah, we generated all of the artwork using
When
DALL-E.
She says we, she means her.
Yes, I do mean me. It was fun. It was fun to engineer all of the prompts. It was definitely took up half of my day to do it, but it was great. So yeah, we'll send that to everybody. There are 5 core exercises for 5 of the core laws. We wanted to keep it pretty short to begin with, just to kind of see how it went, see how everybody enjoyed it. But we may be doing stuff like this in the future. So keep an eye out for that. Also, just a little bit about us in category design before we hop in. Some of you who've been joining from our Substack community and our newsletter, or have been following Eddie and Christopher on LinkedIn or on his podcast, probably heard a little bit about category design. Some of you may have seen some of this stuff before, but as I'm learning, category design is always evolving. Even writing this book and setting up this webinar, all 3 of us have learned a lot about it and how to teach it, how to explain it. And so the whole point of this book and what we're trying to do here is just to be able to help you all work through these 4 questions of, can you explain it to other people? Can you write or speak about it? Can you get paid to do it? And then can you apply it to your own company? So our whole goal is to try to be able to get you to walk through all 4 of those, whichever one of those 4 you would like to do. And we all have kind of unique backgrounds. I'm coming from writing and editing in B2B and B2C startup tech. Eddie is coming from S&P 500, B2C. And then Christopher is coming from Silicon Valley, B2B tech. So we all kind of have our different lenses and worldview we're combining into category design. And with that, Christopher, I'm going to hand it off to you for the category design overview.
Thanks, Kat. And we are so stoked that you're all here. So fundamentally, category design is about thinking, and it's about thinking about business in a very different way. Kevin Maney famously called category design a different lens. Most people know that you can design a business, a company, a business model, a product, a service. But most people don't realize you can actually design a market category. And it turns out the economics are pretty compelling. The companies that design and dominate their own market categories in the tech world earn 76% of the market value of their whole space. We've done extensive research on Fortune 500, S&P 500 companies. And the bottom line is the ones that are category designers are valued between 4 and 5x comparable fast-growing companies. Now, hey, Kat, can I do a little, am I allowed to go off script a little here?
You are allowed to go off script.
Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
You should be able to now.
Okay. Kat and Eddie are freaking out right now.
Whatever happens, happens. So
they have no idea what I'm going to do. But this is really, let's have some fun.
This is not the first time this has happened.
Welcome to the pirate ship. Okay. Everybody see this photograph? You see that?
I can see it.
Okay. So this is a photograph I took about 2 weeks ago at our local farmers market. And what this is a sandwich board in the middle of a walkway at the farmers market. And I'm going to say something completely outrageous. Something so outrageous that when I say it, the little voice in your head's going to go, that's nuts. That can't be true. I dismiss everything that this person's now going to say. I get that. And all I'm asking you to do is just consider it for a moment. Just consider this. And here's this that I would like you to consider. That you will learn more about how to build a legendary business from the sheep farmer who wrote this sign than you could by getting a Harvard marketing MBA. Now let's break down why. It's important to note what's there, and it's also important to note what's not there. So the biggest not there that's noticeable is there's no brand or company name on this sign. So what is on this sign? Sheep, yogurt, large font, popsicles, smaller font, $4 for each, and an arrow over there. What is this sign telling us? It's marketing the category, not the brand. And where is it marketing the category? Well, it's marketing exactly where legendary category designers market. They go to where super consumers of their category likely already are, and they go to communities. In this case, if you're at a farmer's market, you might be interested in a sheep yogurt popsicle. There's one other thing on here that this sheep farmer knows that Apple knows that most others don't. There's a premium price. It turns out the average popsicle is 50 cents. This is a $4 popsicle. Okay, so this sign literally stops me and my wife in our tracks. We go, sheep's yogurt popsicle. What's that about? Oh, over there. We know it's a premium product. We buy it. We got the vanilla maple, and it was legendary. And only then do we discover its Hidden Valley cheese brand from, I can't remember. Somewhere in California. I can't remember. Anyway, then you know what the brand is. And so what's my point? This is category design. And interestingly enough, a lot of small entrepreneurs are intuitive category designers because if they don't figure out why this sign drives the revenue that it does, and why if they put up a sign that said big font, their name, and small font, sheep yogurt popsicles, it wouldn't work. They know that intuitively because if they don't figure it out, they don't eat. And yet, many a Fortune 500 CEO and many a venture-backed entrepreneur doesn't understand the genius of this sign. And this fundamentally is category design.
All right. I think I might have fixed the chat. Can anyone let me know if they can type it in now? And if not, it's a lost cause, and we'll just use the Q&A as our chat.
I'll note that it wasn't me typing Moscow, for somehow Christopher conscripted my identity. But
Oh, well.
Hey, I'm very technical like that. I'm a technical spook. Now I can steal Eddie's identity and
That is true.
say
All
weird
right.
things.
We're going to send this deck out to everybody at the end. So I'm going to, Christopher, like always, had his different way of doing things. So we're not going to run through all of this stuff. He explained to you all what category design is, what it is not, which is all of these things. And you can reference this deck at the end of the webinar. So I'm just going to run through it really quickly. Here's all the way category design can help you. And then I'm going to talk through really quickly about, let's just hop over the Q&A to see if anybody.
someone said you enabled chat for the presenters, but not for the audience participants. Kat,
Well,
if that's helpful. But
Obviously, this goes to show I'm learning Zoom webinars. It's a process. So I'll work on that again. But for now, you can ask any questions in the Q&A section, and we'll answer them. I can see those, and we can answer them, and that's going to be especially important for the workshop. So just go ahead and send your questions there. I'm going to talk through a little bit about the book and how we structured it and why it's different, and then we'll get into the workshop. Okay, so this book is obviously it's kind of a culmination of everything that Category Pirates has been writing about for the past 2.5, 3 years. The whole reason that we designed it was to help you all get outcomes. The real goal is just to get everybody better at category design, and that includes us. We learned a ton when we were writing the book. It's the first Category Pirates book with in-book exercises in it. It's the first category design book, we think, that has an AI worksheet. And the whole goal of the book was really just to focus on these strategic and practical, tactical outcomes to help you apply category design and get the outcomes for your company and for your category. This kind of came from us doing a survey last fall, and everyone said, we like the thinkers high, but we want more outcomes. So this is what we're working on with this book and with this webinar and with our future content as well. So just quickly, the book is divided into 4 parts, and there's 11 exercises in it. The first, foundational thinking, is part 1. This is going to kind of help you understand category design, understand the economics, really get you into the reflective thinking. So we have 2 exercises here about rejecting the premise, finding your supers. Then we jump into category design, which is one part of the magic triangle. This is really going to focus on how to put your category first, how to put your supers first, how to frame, name, and claim a category, which is what we're going to workshop today. And then part 3 and 4, product, obviously product, service, offering, whatever it is that you'd like to call it, and that pertains to your business. There are 5 here. This is kind of the bulk of the exercises. How to be different, how to create and build your demand strategy, create your digital air offerings. For those of you who are part of our Substack newsletter, you haven't seen this one before. This is some new content. We haven't written about this, so go check that out. Tell us what you think. We have an exercise on pricing. And then part 4 is going to be all about company design, how to innovate your business model, find your word of mouth super geos, and set yourself up for success there. All right, let's hop over to the Q&A to see if anyone has any questions. All right, Maria, I see your questions. All right, I'm gonna ask Maria's question, then Eddie and Christopher, if you want to hop in and answer. Mm-hmm. She asks, what do you do when the client is solving an existing problem in a truly unique way that people never thought was possible, but they still need to refer it as the same market or category, or else they're just making up a name for the space that the customer won't understand? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Maria, because it's oftentimes solving knowing that you're solving something that feels like an existing problem is a good sign, in the sense that you can anchor it in something that is familiar. And that, part of category design, like one of the misconceptions I think, is that people feel like I have to create something completely new and de novo to the world, like inventing a new element on the periodic table. And that's not really the case. And the whole kind of design of the book, we talked about frame, name, and claim. If you can frame, name, and claim an existing problem with a different solution, that's fantastic, actually. And that what you are referring to is a challenge of the naming and claiming part of it, which is to say, how do you language it in a way so that people are still anchored in the existing category, but kind of like what Christopher took us through with the sheep yogurt popsicle was like popsicles are an existing problem or category. And, those of us who have kids, you're kind of like popsicles are the better choice than the sugar high that might happen from ice cream. But, popsicles still have some challenges, and there's some kind of embedded things within that, whether it's the red dye that makes your kids a little Looney Tunes or whatever. And that perhaps a sheep yogurt popsicle is something completely different, solving a novel frozen novelty need that people have that is familiar enough, but captivating enough to kind of arrest you and stop. So I think part of what we're trying to do in all of this is to allow exactly this question. And I hope that AI exercises are helping you do that. This is exactly the kind of thing, like you can have a dialogue with us and or a dialogue with ChatGPT to frame, name, and claim. Like, hey, one of the things that we did, Kat and Christopher, remember, like we would use ChatGPT. Hey, throw in this idea, give me 11 variations on it. Play with it this way, and still anchoring it in something that's familiar. Like that's the real whole point behind the book, because what you are getting at is something that we all want you to accomplish and do. And we are hopeful that the book allows you to kind of get to that. Most of you, we suspect, know the theory behind category design, but the nitty gritty of how do you actually get to a name for the category that the consumer will understand, but also see as different.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. Oh, and we have the chat. Look at that. Problem solving on the fly. Thanks, everybody, for the support and the understanding.
I will admit, in order to get all of us online, we had to do some native analog. Can you share this link, this and that? So now I know why.
My goodness.
Christopher and I are using the same link. So I will just give a forewarning to anybody. If it comes from me, 50-50 chance it's not. I don't know if that's a good idea for me to put that disclaimer out there before Christopher starts typing, but or not. But
that's what keeps it. That's what keeps it exciting, right? All right. I know you just answered a question, Eddie, but why don't you run everybody through this real life version of how to frame, name, and claim a category? And I'll kind of operate and run through the slides. And like I said, you all will get a copy of this afterwards so you can reference it. But Eddie, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, so this to me is, category design. We all are fans and love it and are part of the pirate ship. What we want, as Kat kind of summarized, is that, we know that, our supers are the most delighted when they are able to take category design and apply it to get an outcome, whether in their company that they're working for, in their career, or their next entrepreneurial venture, whatever else it is. Like that's what we're really trying to do. And that at the end of the day, even though we have the 22 laws, it is kind of at the core, how do we equip you and enable you with the right tools and tips and exercises to do these three things, right? To frame a different problem or an opportunity, to talk about what the new future looks like and name it, but also claim it in a way that is unique to you, and also exciting, worthy of a price premium, and the market cap opportunities that Christopher talked about. And so we are trying to do again, real life example. We want to save time, obviously, for the AMA, because that's the reason why we're all here. But if you go to slide 18, one of our great friends is Lomi, and they are, and Christopher and Cole and I, we spent a lot of time talking with them about what is the category. So Matt Bertulli and Brad Peterson, two amazing entrepreneurs, both had, kind of previous, not their first rodeo. Matt as a programmer, computer scientist who started and ran and sold a digital agency. Brad as a longtime executive and entrepreneur in the toy industry. So both had previous exits. Had not, this was Lomi had started out as Pila Case. For those of you who have compostable phone cases, that's how they started. And if you really kind of want to get into the nitty gritty, I would encourage you to download this week's latest Follow Your Different, as Christopher and Matt have a conversation about all of this. But, if you really follow their story, it's kind of fascinating, right? Like they built two Canadians, so near and dear to Christopher's heart, that started this world's first compostable phone case category that had done pretty well, was going along. And one of the things that was interesting for them was there was a missing that they had, which was it's great that we're solving the problem of Apple continues to innovate new models, and of course new model means new accessories and new phone cases, and what do you do with all of that other stuff? And they had solved that problem pretty well, but they knew that they were just kind of scratching the surface. And so part of it in framing a different problem or opportunity could be that it's not necessarily different wholly, but that you're really kind of unlocking the bigger problem behind the problem that you're trying to solve for. So obviously solving for the phone cases is solving for plastic waste. But this is one of the things that was really quite compelling for me was this whole idea of, well, what about the rest of recycling and waste? And that's how they got the food waste, was they started, and I know Christopher has a bunch. I have one. I've probably bought 5 as gifts for other people, these Lomi products. If you take a look at it, it's a great device, beautiful, as if Apple designed it. You put it on your counter, put all your food waste in there. And probably, Christopher, this was, I think, my favorite line from the podcast that you and Matt did was, if food waste was its own country, that it would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gas behind the US and China. And, and part of what I love about this, is that the slides kind of don't do Lomi justice, obviously, because it's a moving target and an evolving category. And if you look at the history of what they've been doing, is that we have worked very hard with them to help them figure out how exactly to frame what they are doing. And that in particular, if you think about food waste as the problem to solve for, like compostable phone cases was one, but food waste, if you think about, I had no idea that it was the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gas if it was a country itself, right? And Christopher, you guys talked about the problem of methane, versus what CO2 kind of, there's within the current category of recycling and waste management and all of that, was a set of data and missing and a misunderstanding of what the problem was that they were able to really language differently and really hone in on. And so there's kind of a macro lens of hey, if you really want to do good for the world, Matt talks about, don't worry about, the issue of private jets and planes, just worry about your food scraps, what you're doing with it, put it into a Lomi, and you're going to do just as much good as if anything. And in fact, if you really want to do good, you would buy your friend or family a Lomi so that they can do the same. But that part of what we really got to was, well, how do you name and frame it all is this whole idea of a smart waste category, right? And so, we talked about waste, people is well understood. Smart is something is well understood. Smartphone, smart refrigerator, smart washing machine. There's a lot of things that all it talks about is its connectivity and everything else with it. But one of the things that I think Matt really anchored on was that if you listen to the podcast, that Christopher, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was saying that waste management is a $2 to $3 trillion category worldwide. And that if you think
they have a vested interest in the existence of waste. When in point of fact, waste is a human invention. Matt and I talked about this as well. I was actually taught this by another entrepreneur, so it's not my idea, but it was an aha for me. Maybe I'm late to the party or stupid or, hey, I didn't go to school. But when you think about it, waste is a human invention. There is no such thing in nature. There's nothing wasted in nature. And so that's a big aha. And then you start to understand the impact of stacking this waste on top of this waste. And I don't think most of us, myself included, thought very much about my food waste. Right. And so these guys literally saw something that the bulk of the world didn't see.
Well, and it's what was so cool about, one of the things we talk about in Category Pirates is falling in love with the problem. And apologies, Kat, I'm jumping around to a bunch of different things here. But if you go to slide.
Hey, now Eddie's going off script too.
I'm going off script. Slide 24. Is one of the things that I love about what Matt and Brad have done on slide 24 talks about the problem in different articulations. It's actually the next one after that. There you go. Is that falling in love with the problem means falling in love with every nook and cranny of the problem whatsoever, right? So you have the whole kind of why do we collectively name it the smart waste category? It is waste management is as big of a category as anything out there. When you think about $2 to $3 trillion worldwide, remember the U.S. GDP is about $23 trillion. So, for all the hubbub talking about X, Y, and Z, and certainly AI is hot and everything else, who would have thought that waste management was also a multi-trillion-dollar category to tackle? And so, hence, smart waste is a halo and nod to that. But then also, if you look at kind of the third line on this one here, and Matt references it, and I related to it on, which was pests are drawn to decomposing food waste. So food waste is kind of disgusting on its own, right? It's the but you scrape it into the garbage, and then you don't really see it. But if you have food waste that piles up into a garbage can, and what happens? Pests get into it, raccoons, other animals, think rodents. And what do? They strew the waste and the garbage all over your driveway, whatever else it is. And so it is actually the ability to straddle and articulate the problem at the most macro level of it's the third largest country generating greenhouse gas to the most micro and personal. You know what? You don't want those critters leaving a big old waste out there on your lawn or on your driveway. And the ability to kind of articulate if you're a gardener, hey, check it out. You can use the smart waste product afterwards. And as Christopher talked about, waste is a human invention. Now our food waste becomes something that is actually garbage turns into gold. If you're using it for your plants, if you have flowers, if you have fruit trees, if you have anything else. And now we have turned something that was a massive problem into category after category of imagine, can your Lomi become, solve the problem of fertilizer being and soil being a scarce resource. That's also something that Christopher and Matt talk about is that, just given as a result of climate change, that the availability of high quality topsoil is a global problem. Again, problems that I don't think about, right? And so part of the whole kind of framing, naming and claiming it is certainly you want to think about the highest level, the most macro, the one that'll get investors really compelled by it at an economic, $2 trillion, all that kind of stuff. You want it to be at the most micro level, emotional, personal, things of that nature. And you want it to be as niche as possible. Like and the part that we love about Matt and Brad and what they're doing at Lomi is that just as we say, new categories beget categories. Falling in love with the problem begets other problems that you hadn't thought about, problems that you can articulate. And if you go to the Lomi YouTube channel and you kind of see all the ads, some of the ads that have generated hundreds of millions of views, they continually put out great content marketing, all of which markets the problem in different ways. And one of the ones that they latest put out there is the whole idea of, you have food, you store it in your fridge, it goes bad. How do you know what's good or bad? Do you want to roll the dice? I certainly relate to that. And my wife hates that. And they're continuing to create new products, both physical and digital, all around this Lomi ecosystem. One of the new things that they came out with was the Lomi Skylight, which is a lid that is see-through and you can see kind of the magic composting happening that would take months, that would take now hours with it. So it's just kind of fascinating for us to watch because every single one of the 22 laws, from foundational thinking to the product to the company category and to the company, we have gone through every single one of those with the Lomi guys to discuss how does that apply. And so we're really excited about it. We hope that when you get the deck that you can dig into it, check out the podcast that Christopher talked about. Because if you listen to the podcast and you follow these guys, that they are doing a remarkable job of living out all 22 laws of the category design. I think you'll see the book come to life. And that's really the whole point. The book is not meant to be, let me sit down in a nook, read it start to finish, put it down in my bookshelf and never see it again. What you want to do is read the book a little bit, go try something. brainstorm with a business partner, put it out there with a consumer, try some new marketing, try some innovation, come back, or hey, I have a business problem, I have an innovation idea. Let me go read the book, because what we write about in the intro is we want the book to read you too. Meaning, when you are thinking about doing something, before you go too far, go check the book. It's meant to be a wholly different use of a book, in the sense of, if you had kind of Christopher ChatGPT, that's kind of what the purpose of it is, right? Is like, hey, I have this idea. Does it fit the category, the 22 laws? Let me go run through it and see if it actually jives or doesn't jive with it. So that's kind of my story about that.
Go ahead, Christopher. We have a couple of questions. So, Christopher, have you been keeping an eye on those?
Well, I saw Benoit's, because Benoit and I are, on the same wavelength for a bunch of reasons. So if I understand your question, Benoit, so maybe we're not doing a great job. Essentially, greenhouse gases as a result of food waste is like a giant problem. And that's when Eddie talks about that Matt on the podcast said that if it was a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter behind China and the US. So what that means is, when you and I throw our food garbage into the garbage and it just goes to landfill, bad shit happens. That's what that essentially means. And so if you were able to get that down to, by a meaningful number, all of a sudden we would take a lot of greenhouse gas producing waste out of the system. On top of that, the other thing that's super cool here is, it turns out, because of climate change, we have a dirt crisis on this planet. And so high quality compost, high quality dirt is needed, because a lot of stuff is turning to sand. Anyway, this thing creates dirt, which there's real value with. We now have at least one that I'm aware of example of people packaging and selling loamy dirt. So literally taking garbage that would have gone to a landfill and turning it into cash.
We have one more question related to that, and I saw a thumbs up in the chat, so hopefully that answered the question. Ed asks, he said, it looks like Lomi has trademarked their category smart waste appliance. Should they rethink that? In my understanding, you want the market to start calling the category by the name you invented. Thoughts?
You're right. They're making a mistake there. There should be smart waste appliance is the category. We don't trademark the category for exactly that reason. And if you're a category designer and you've been through this, this happens. And it happens every fucking time. When you launch a legendary category design with a lightning strike and you crush it, it is you absolutely nail it. Within days, competitors are knocking that shit off on their homepages, on social media. It's stunning how fast it happens. And you want that, because the second that happens, they just Venmo'd you their marketing budget.
Yeah. Awesome. We have a ton of questions. So why don't we get to the workshop portion of this? Really quickly, I just wanted to show you all what the How to Frame, Name, and Claim a Category exercise looks like in the new 22 Laws book. So we kind of have 5 big questions that run you through listing your super's pet peeves, trying to get into characters, that super, experimenting with your languaging and trying to put that into a really short phrase, and then, workshopping that and eventually picking one and starting to educate the world on it using the rest of the book. So if you want like a practical way to start it, both the AI worksheet and this will help with that. But that said, let's get into some workshopping. All right, I'm going to pull a couple just from the Q&A. Let's see. We have a question from Anthony that says, have you seen category design applied to affiliate marketing? A case I have in mind is a platform that's addressing a problem in and a strong and what I consider unique approach to building what is missing on a strong technology. Anthony, if you want to elaborate on that a little bit, but Christopher or Eddie, do you have any examples for how this could work for affiliate marketing?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it actually reminds me of the Lomi situation of compostable smartphone cases to food waste into, the third largest country emitting greenhouse effects. Is that, what is the problem of affiliate marketing? My suspicion is that it's the same problem of all marketing, which is to say, all marketing that doesn't generate revenue or market cap or grow the category is arts and crafts, right? And so one of the things that we talk about, I think in one of the I forget which number the laws are, but that whole concept of solving for the problem of affiliate marketing at some level is solving for the problem of marketing, which is to say, what kinds of affiliate marketing actually generate revenue? And there's a straight line that you can measure from one to the next one out there. And so there's certainly that part of it. If you look at the three marketing metrics that matter, law, what can you solve for on the affiliate marketing side? And then, on the other one, I would say simplicity is velocity. Affiliate marketing sometimes can be burdened with too much complexity. There's too many affiliates to market, and how do you winnow partners? How do you bring on the right ones? And so at the same level, you want to balance kind of this idea of how do I generate revenue, market cap or category potential with my marketing and my affiliate marketing in particular. And how do I do so in the simplest way without introducing unnecessary complexity, because simplicity is velocity with it.
And it's hard to exactly break it down with the very, very broad category of affiliate marketing. Christopher, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I'm just wondering if this is connected to Calvin's question around unique distribution channels. And the reality is, the way you configure the business, right, the business model, the company design, is as important as anything you're going to think about. It's absolutely as important as your product service design. And it is, of course, as important as your category design. And so so distribution's hard. And so if you can build some kind of a compelling distribution advantage particularly in a way that's tough to replicate, that's a very powerful thing to go do. And, we've seen it many times. I mean, the obvious example that pops straight to my head is Netflix, right? But the reality is Dell did it with the internet. Dell was the first company to really get selling computers on the internet to scale. And at the time, it's going to sound funny, but people said, well, how the fuck are you going to sell computers on the internet? Because you have to have a computer to be on the internet. And so, because not everybody had computers, but I digress. Yes, distribution is a massive advantage if you're doing something innovative there.
Well, especially if you get closer to the end user, the consumer, right? I mean, because that part of the, and the big, we talked about, the disruption that Silicon Valley has done and technology has done by and large for the large S&P 500 companies is to get things closer with less middlemen and fewer hands in pockets to the end user consumer who's actually going to buy your super consumer, as it were, right? And so one of the great things about this, if it's a new distribution channel, can be amazing, especially if you're cutting out steps and, again, margin, removal from the different profit pools as you go direct with it. Or can you enable it in a way that is incremental, where it is completely, you think about a super consumer is an inverse green eggs and ham person. So if you think of that Dr. Seuss book of never will I eat it on a plane or a train, I will not eat it, Sam I am, like a super is like, I will want my green eggs and ham on a plane, on a train, and anywhere that I want. And that following your super to a wholly different distribution channel can be an amazing way to design not only a new category, but to figure out in what particular needs does that super consumer have that are currently unmet, which is a great way to, continue to innovate and push on what's new. So I love the distribution one.
Awesome. Jumping off of distribution, we have a couple of languaging questions, which kind of ties into the name it, right? Frame and name. So we have one from Adrian and one from Joshua. I'm going to combine them since they're similar. So Adrian asks, I'm trying to change an existing category, but the name of the category and the title of the people using the category of product is the same. Do I need these people to buy into changing their title, or will getting people with the title to adopt the new solution be sufficient? And Joshua also kind of asks, like, how clever does the category name need to be? Can it be ordinary, or does it have to be super revolutionary? Christopher, you want to take this one?
Yes, I'm trying to. Can you just give me the front end of the question again?
Yeah, he's trying to change an existing category.
Yep.
And maybe we could talk a little bit about that. But the name of the category and the title of the people using the category of the product. And Adrian, like, give us these exact words if you can.
I got it.
Yeah, it's the same. So he's saying that, like, the category and the people using it has the same name.
Yes, got it. Yeah, good, yeah. Excellent. Been there, done that. Bought the T-shirt. And it's B2B. Yes, I assume it's B2B. Yeah.
No comment. You didn't say.
So the company that frames the business conversation around any kind of a B2B buy, particularly a B2B tech buy, but it's truly, look, the Zoom really thinks I'm Eddie Yoon. That's so fucking funny. Eddie Yoon is swearing way more than he normally does. So you want to own the business conversation around whatever the thing is. So as it relates to the specific of what you want to do here, you want to elevate the perceived business value of the name/title of people that you're marketing to with the new category design. And I'll give you an example that we lived. We were at a company called, I was the CMO at a company called Mercury Interactive. And the company, when I joined, was the category king of software testing, software QA, and two different types of QA, which I won't drag you through. And the company needed to move up the sort of perceived value stack in the minds of business technology buyers, but we had to take those people with us. And so we launched a new category called business technology optimization. And what we said was, what the QA folks did was they were a critical part of ensuring that the business was optimizing the business value of its technology. So I could walk you through more of the details if you care. But what ended up happening was now people who didn't have a voice at the senior level in the company did, and were viewed much more valuable than they were prior, because we elevated or made their function more strategic, because BTO was a critical business function. And so as you go to think about this, think about how, as you roll out the category, you can have a point of view that elevates the value of the people in the current category, and they will gravitate up there with you, if you see what I mean. Was that helpful?
We shall see. He provided a little bit more. He provided a little bit more detail in the chat. So maybe Christopher, you can.
I was on a roll by then, Adrian.
You were on a roll. But you can check that out, and we can get a little bit more specific.
Yeah, bring them with you. Inspire them. Really, speak to them. Speak to them exactly the way you would to your own employees when you talk about the mission and the opportunity going forward and why this work matters and all the good stuff like that that you want to talk to your people about. Talk to your customers the same way. You're elevating them. This is a mission that we're going on together. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And does that kind of answer the question too of like, how clever does it need to be, right?
I think it
don't know if
relates to it. Yeah. Because I mean, I think one of the things that we've talked about is, clear, not clever. I mean, clever is a bonus as long as you're clear, but the clarity of what the category name is should make you want to do something. The exercise of the sheep yogurt popsicle with the arrow was great because the arrow said, go this way at the end of it. And that if you have the right kind of, like for me, if you, one of the things I appreciate about Lomi and the smart waste thing is like, I personally didn't want dumb waste. I didn't want, and as somebody who cooks, uses a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruit, you generate a lot of food waste. And so you didn't want to be dumb about it. That's kind of the elegance of the smart versus, when you add that as a modifier. But, there's any number of things that it should be clear, it should evoke a response, and it should make you want to do something as a result. So all the other kind of stuff, like if it's clear, it evokes an emotion and it makes you want to do something, then everything else is kind of like, let's not worry about that.
Yeah. We have this could be a fun workshop to get into the actual languaging of it. So Suzanne said that she's trying to reframe a higher education category. This is something that we talk about. We've talked about a bit before at Category Pirates. So she says trying to move away from the idea that larger colleges are better. And she has this idea of micro colleges. So under 1,000 students, they can really have a support system and probably, more for Gen Z and the upcoming generations who don't want to go to college. It's too expensive. It's not practical. So maybe we can chat a little bit about that too, right? Like, it's this accelerated college? Is micro college the right word for it? Should college even be in there, or does it need a new word altogether?
Yeah, so hey Suzanne, good to see you again. Like I think the idea of micro college is great. I actually wonder if it's college. I think is fine because it explains what the legacy category is. Micro, I actually took to mean not the size of the university, but the length of the experience, right? Because like one of the key things, if you think about the problem of higher education, is that it's the $1 trillion of college debt, and there's any number of problems to solve for that. That's why everything kind of comes back to that foundational thinking of what are the things that you're falling in love with, and what premise are we rejecting? And the easiest way to reject it is, if you think about, Christopher always says, pay attention to the words. When you say 4-year college versus 2-year college, immediately what do you think of? You think of, 4-year college is better than 2-year college. There's a quality perception. There's kind of it's a bachelor's degree versus a trade school degree, or junior college, or something that's a little more pejorative about that. But the reality is that college, if you are actually thoughtful about what it is that you want to study, and that you can be efficient about choosing your courses, does not have to take 4 years, and that college actually being faster than a 4-year time period is the simple, easiest way to reduce the cost of college, right? Is that if you can actually graduate in 3 years, you should. And, people will yada, yada, yada about like, you make friends and that. Like, if it's $1 trillion of debt that people can't pay back, and they can't buy a home, and they can't start a family as a result of that. This is a massive problem for all of society. You see it in Japan, shrinking societies because kids, people aren't getting married. They're not having kids. Like all of these things, it's a broader systemic thing. I think about micro as, whether or not that's the right word, but the idea of tackling the problem of let me get you through it faster, let me get through it more efficiently, and let me, something around that lens of, when I look at what you're saying, Suzanne, about it's not about support their success, it is about guaranteeing their success. I mean, let's just be very, very clear about the problem. Again, fall in love with the problem is that most colleges are promising things that they do not deliver on, right? The promise of a college degree is that you will make more money than if you didn't have one. And if the colleges aren't lining up jobs for them or aren't steering students to the right things to study, then it is a problem for everybody, including the colleges. Like, you put warning labels on cigarettes. You should put warning labels on certain things that you study for a certain amount of time, that you are not setting yourself up well for the future here, right? So you make your choice with it, but there's a whole history of things that problems to solve for. And that I think being clear about what that is allows you to be very clear about what the name should be.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. We had one more kind of jump off of that from Diego about, it looks like he's working in the education space too, but this can pertain to a lot of people. What about when you're creating a category in a highly regulated field, be it education or maybe pharmaceuticals or something that can be a little bit tricky with regulations?
Category design is even more important in those situations because of the level of at stakeness. That is to say, in capital markets or in entrepreneurial markets, there's an assumed fluidity. That is to say, there's always an opportunity to kind of shape thinking and shape direction and create new. In regulated markets, sort of once they get established and laws get in place, yes, things can still change, but it's a lot different. So all that said, the at stakeness is even higher.
Can I add? Go ahead. You're not done.
Oh, do you see anything you want there, honey?
I was going to say, I was going to quote one of your sayings is, yesterday's problems are tomorrow's solutions, right? Regulation typically means bad experience for the consumer, the end user. You think about hospitals, you think about, all the things that can and can't be done. The financial system obviously has a lot of them. When regulation should be a big old sign that says unhappy super consumers, should be a big old sign that says great opportunity for services, right? And that in fact, regulation, changing regulation can be very difficult. That being said, having a Sherpa or a Yoda who understands the regulations, understands the problem you're trying to solve for, and understands the outcome that you're trying to get to, is a massive winner. And so, you think about if you had a healthcare sommelier, somebody who understood what it was like if you have a family member that's dealing with an illness, who understands the reimbursement process, who understands what kind of medicines and what works, what doesn't work, and what kind of expectations they have, who understands, hey, DNR, really important in these situations, and what the family dynamics really, really complex. Healthcare sommelier is an amazing opportunity for somebody who knows that system, and for a family who would say, I will pay you anything to make this highly regulated, horrific experience better for me. And so it is one of those things where you don't, regulated situations don't tackle the obvious problem, tackle the non-obvious problem and the opportunity that arises from it.
Another sort of dimension of this is she who creates the languaging wins. And so the minute you say streaming, well, now it's a new media category. And so that means, and that's a very important thing, because that now means a whole new set of licensing, because it's not an extension of anything that was. You've convinced the world that it's a new thing. And then when it comes to regulating these things, all of a sudden, well, it's not broadcast television and it's not cable television. What is it? Is it internet? We don't know what it's a new category called streaming, right? And so now there's going to be new regulations around streaming, and there's going to be new laws about all sorts of usage and all sorts of different things. Why? Because ultimately, the category designers of streaming, with Netflix in the lead, And we had we had Mark Randolph on my podcast years ago. The founding CEO of Netflix. What a character! He actually lives here in Santa Cruz. He's a pirate all the way. Anyway, my point is, we're seeing this today in AI, where Sam Altman's come forward and said, listen, I want you to regulate AI. I want there to be laws that are different than the laws that we have. And people have been shocked that he's done this. Well, he's been very wise. The reason he's wise about this is he knows AI will be regulated. There will be laws. And so if he comes open hand and says, I'd like to work with everybody, then he's not the bad guy being an asshole. He is stepping forward and trying to participate. And in this case, this kind of a case, you ready for this? Stay with me. It's part of the category design. One of the things we talk about in category design is the ecosystem. And the reality of many category designs is an incredibly important part of that ecosystem for many companies is lawmakers and regulators. Is it an e-bike, a bike, or a moped, which requires a different kind of license? Oh, depends on what your definition of is, said Mr. Clinton. Right? These things have profound impacts. E-bikes is a new category. They got them to be legally classified as bikes. Well, that win is a giant advantage because it means you don't have to have a special license. It's got to be part of the category design. We know some of the early folks at Pandora. Pandora took an act of Congress for it to work. Literally. Anyway, I hope that was a little helpful.
Thanks, guys. One question that kind of came up that's a bit related to that is Joe asked, how much do you recommend anchoring your languaging in the familiar if the familiar is largely a disliked category? This is like the Frodo, right?
New languaging. You don't want to be in the impotence business. You want to be in the erectile dysfunction business, or ED, even better.
That's a great example. So we are at time. If anyone needs to hop off, thanks for joining us. We can keep going for a couple more minutes. We have a ton of questions, and we'll try to answer some of them in our email and even just in the Substack newsletter if any of you follow us, because we do these weekly videos. One that I thought was pretty interesting came from Eric, and this could potentially be our last one. We'll see how long this goes. But he said that he has a new 3D photo product with a foldable viewer. So it's basically like it creates a 3D photo that replicates the person in a realistic and memorable way. Right now, his company name is called Not Flat Photos, but he said he's struggling with what to call the actual product itself.
So the product is a 3D photo?
It looks like it's a 3D photo with a foldable viewer. It seems like it can kind of be a souvenir. So it seems like it's a physical product, greeting card, takeaway, maybe some sort of hologram. Immersive 3D photo that replicates the person in a realistic and memorable way, entirely lifelike.
Hold on, I'm going to see this thing. You're going to category design something, you at least have to look at it.
We can't find it. Let's see if Eric is still on. He can help us with it.
I just Googled not flat photo and it's not
Christopher is looking at it.
Oh, wait a minute. There it is. There it is.
You see it?
What strikes me is sometimes the frame naming claiming can come from take the product and try to elevate it from there. But some of it, I think I'm kind of glomming onto this theme park souvenir, greeting card, or a wedding souvenir tape, and it might actually be that the category name may stem from there, at least one of them, and it may lead to others. But if I think about kind of what problem does a theme park souvenir solve for? Is that theme parks are crazy expensive in that you do it because you're trying to create some lasting memories. What better way to create a lasting memory than a 3D photo product, in that the problem that you're solving for is, I know I'm blowing a lot of money as the parent that's bringing in, or your friends or whatever. And so can I actually have something that reminds me of that time that'll last, much longer than the experience itself? And so like this idea of a 3D memory, could be an interesting thing. A 3D, the whole kind of category of memory making, I think, as this is just me as a dad talking of like, things that you bring forward with shared experiences for your kids, vacations, weddings, certainly, or a greeting card of a milestone event. What you're really trying to do is memory make. I remember that experience, and I remember that fondly. Those of you who've seen the Pixar movie Inside Out, what is it called? It's a core memory, right? The bubble that really sticks with you, and that's kind of what you're trying to create. If that's what you can do with you just put 3D memories. That's beautiful, because I actually think about that movie when I can hold the orb up and I can look back to the time when my dad took me this and that, and it was whatever this and that, and it's the ability to relive that memory in a way that you can't quite do so in a 2D photo. And so I think if you kind of talk about it that way versus the product, then I'm like, oh, I want a 3D memory. I have a 2D memory of it, which is that I want 3. And because I might be able to step into it in a way, and that promise of, can I go back to feeling the way that it felt, that I know I can't go back to because I don't have a time machine. But I don't know, that's kind of the problem that I'm thinking about solving with that as a dad who has older kids.
And this is probably not right, but this work is about failing in the right direction. Is the product a go back? Right? So if the value of it is because it's 3D, it puts me back in that place. Play with that. Because I think Eddie's onto something.
It is funny. It's that Apple, when Apple marketed the 3D Vision Pro, whatever, like that the kind of commentary about the dad that was reliving the memories, and someone was like, seems like a divorced dad who is like, having to go, his kids aren't there, he's kind of lonely and all that kind of stuff. But like that whole kind of go back is, that is, talk about extraordinary price premium. What all of us have fond memories that we would love to go back and relive. And there's no, shortage of willingness to pay for in that scenario. And that's always a good place to be designing.
Awesome. I think you guys nailed it. It looked like he has a lot to think about. Cool. I think we are probably going to cut it off here. I know we all have to hop and do some other things. There's still 100 of you on, which is amazing and awesome. And we have so many good questions. We are going to do another one like this, probably a little bit more workshop-y.
Hey, teacher, why don't we just book more time?
You want to keep going?
Well, I can keep going now, but if people want to go for an hour and a half, I don't give a shit.
I'm fine with that. We could probably go for another. We could go for another 15 minutes if that's cool. Let's see if there's any other workshops. All right. Cynthia asked, I'm working on creating a category in my field of home remodeling. Originally, I was heading towards an e-remodeling name, but the problem opportunity isn't better, faster, cheaper, although it technically is. Let's see. She's hung up on the naming, but should I just start teaching it as the category? Her working name is Project Home. Cynthia, maybe you can give us a little bit more detail?
I have an idea on this one because
Go ahead,
I
Eddie.
think my wife was actually doing some of this. Tell me, Cynthia, if this is exactly what you're doing, but like it was a lot of 3D rendering for the place that we live in now. She, as she was kind of designing it, and the kind of legacy way of designing a remodel or a new home or whatever, it's like you're working with the designer. She has those kind of sheets of paper that you can fold over and draw. I don't know if I'm making, you draw one structure, you fold another piece, you can draw over it with it's very analog as a process, right? And you have to be good at Tetris, like imagining like, oh, if I move the kitchen here and the island goes there and the fridge goes there. And it's very, very much pencil, flip. What do you think about that? And it's okay, but it requires a visual capability that I didn't have. And that what my wife was doing was a lot of that auto kitchen type stuff of like, well, let's just render it. And you can like visualize it, fly into it, look as a drone and imagine kind of what it would look like. So this whole idea of remodeling is if I understand this category well, it's the problem of you're spending all this money to remodel, and it's buyer's remorse. Is what you don't want to have is I spent all this money, I nodded my head, and I have my new remodel, and I hate it, and I'm so unhappy that that's kind of the problem that you're trying to solve for. Is at a very, very high level is buyer's remorse, and that at the end of the day, my understanding from it is, similar to your, like what is the problem we're trying to solve? Is the remodeling people oftentimes don't know what problem they're trying to solve for either, right? It's like, maybe I hate my kitchen, I need to remodel it. And so, okay, well, what is that? Why are you remodeling it? And for some people, it's like, I'm remodeling it so I can sell the house. Okay, that's great. So then let's do that. And that becomes a problem of, well, let's look at what's selling, what's not selling, and do that. And then when the client says, I don't like that, you can say, it doesn't matter because it's not for you. That's not the problem we're trying to solve for. We're trying to solve for a remodel so that we can sell the home or whatever else it is, right? And that similarly, if you have a situation where it's not that, it's that we are downsizing, the kids are going away, and therefore we want to remodel this way, or it's the opposite. So like understanding the problem you're trying to solve for, which is to say, who is going to be in there? What are they going to be doing? Why does it matter to them? And articulating what of that, to me, it's actually less of a technology problem as it is in interviewing, a Q&A, an ability to help somebody extract from them of like, what is the end state look like and why is that exciting to you? And that the tools that you're using are actually just that, tools and technology, and that it's as much about the EQ and the questioning around that. So if you had a process and a system that allowed you to say, I'm not going to design your home, but I'm going to walk you through a kind of Rorschach test of like, here's an extreme kitchen, here's this kitchen. Like if you even look at our Zoom backgrounds, we all have different Zoom backgrounds. Let me expose you to different Zoom backgrounds and see how you react until we figure out what problem I'm trying to solve for. And then I can design what that looks like and hone it from there. But like, to me, this is the one where we believe it's about the product and the technology and not about the category, and that you have to elevate it. And that even within the elevation, niching down within the remodel to something super, super specific is going to be the way that you solve for what do I name this in the first place? And that it's probably not about the process or the product or the technology, but again, about the problem you're trying to solve for.
So what was the name of the person who asked this question, Kat?
Ooh,
Cynthia, I think it was.
I'm lost in questions over here.
Okay. Well, if it was Cynthia, great. And if it was something else.
Cynthia, it was Cynthia.
It was Cynthia. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to put this company in the chat and I want you to check them out. The entrepreneur and category designer's name is John McDonald. And the company's called Semi Handmade. And what they did was legendary category design. And here was the founding insight. The founding insight was IKEA makes very good components, in this case for cabinetry. But the front ends of them are whatever. They're not super ding dong. And the reality is, when you're putting in cabinets and shit, what do you want? You want functional on the back end. Doesn't have to be ding dong. Nobody sees it as long as it works well. And you want the ding dong, fancy, beautiful shit on the front end. So once he understood that, he said, well, we're going to build a company that does custom front ends for IKEA. Bam. Whole new category. There's a whole bunch of competitors in the space. And John's expanded beyond just that category with this thing, Boxy, that he does. So just to underscore what Eddie's saying, what John did was identify a new, different problem. And he used a technology, the IKEA system, if you will, to solve that new and different problem. And he's become incredibly successful as a result. Anyway, I hope that helps a little bit, Cynthia.
Awesome. Awesome example. Let's do one more. It looks like we've had a couple of questions about jobs to be done. There was a question before about how you can relate jobs to be done with category design. What is your take on how to work with that framework and create a new category, or naming, framing, and claiming a job you can get done for the customer?
What is jobs you can get done?
So it's a framework from Clay Christensen. I think the book is called Competing Against Luck. And actually, a former colleague of mine, Taddy Hall, is one of the co-authors. So I know this framework pretty well. And it builds off of all of Clay Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma and stuff. And so it's great. So jobs to be done, I think, is a great set of languaging. People don't buy products, they hire them for a specific job. What is the job to be done with that, right? And that job to be done, in my mind, as far as I understand it, I think fits in a very nice specific subset of the 22 laws, in particular, usually around the problem or the product to solve for it. So it's a great way to articulate what problem you're solving, which is to say, what is the job spec that I'm hiring this product or service for? And it's a great way to articulate the Frodo with it. And so, I think it's great languaging. It is well served from the product perspective. I would say that it is less so, there's limitations to how far it can go. It doesn't often articulate the category much. Like it's usually very specific to the problem, and sometimes you can get it to the problem with it or the broader category, but usually it's specific to a company's product. It doesn't always get to the company, and actually it doesn't address it at all. Like the job to be done, what job am I hiring this product for? It doesn't tell you about what kind of company. So the questions that came up beforehand about distribution and things like that, about business model. Is it a direct to consumer? Do you have distributors? Do you make it yourself? Do you market it directly? Do you, have licenses? However, business model stuff does not get addressed. And then, and then some of the partly, I would say, the job to be done can be used for any existing thing. It presumes a category. And what the foundational thinking that we're getting at is we're telling you to reject the premise. And that, so jobs to be done, great for existing categories, great for kind of how do you do a little reswizzle around the product that you're selling with it, and, sometimes creating new product. But if you really want to capture 76% of the economics in the category, you have to address the company and you have to address the category writ large. And you can't get there without addressing some of the foundational thinking. So I would say, great club to have in your golf bag. And there's a lot of great benefits that come from it, but you're going to miss some stuff unless you go through all the 22 laws.
This is why we have Eddie Yoon, everybody. Awesome. Let's do one more and see how this one plays out. This is a question from Josh. It's a naming question. He said, I'm working on a TRM platform category. We all know about customer relationship management, CRM, but there's no enterprise platform for improving team relationships inside your organization. Talent development has many tools. Obviously, but does TRM work as a category idea, given that it sounds similar to CRM?
Yes, and I'm 99% sure it's been done. So I think TRM was talent, but I might be wrong. So I'd go check on that. But regardless of the name, you probably have an idea. And, like always, we'd say to focus on, okay, so what's the problem? And never forget, the bigger, the more urgent, the more strategic the problem or the perception of the problem, the more time, money, and energy people will spend solving that problem.
Just to build on that, on the problem to solve for, I have this problem that's come up for Geneo. One of the businesses that I'm working on is we are in a hiring spree. We're doubling the size of the company. And we are exactly trying to solve for TRM because we have a team selling structure. We have what's called an ASM, an area sales manager, which is an outdoor, basically a salesperson who goes to the account in person. We have an ISR, an inside sales rep. Someone's on the phone, on email and texting and selling that way, and a BDR, a business development rep, somebody who's supporting the two. And the way that I kind of have described it is it's the toe-in surfing of sales. So Christopher, you'll appreciate this, right? You have two guys or gals on a jet ski and one surfer. One person slingshots the surfer into the wave, a wave that they could not have caught on their own because of humans can't paddle that quickly. So the surfer is the outside sales rep. The slingshot,
it's called toe-in surfing, Eddie. Toe-in surfing.
What did I say? Didn't I say toe-in surfing?
Slingshot surfing.
Oh, I said slingshot surfing? Oh, my bad.
Yeah, no, it is slingshotting. That's an accurate description of what's going on. But the appropriate lingo is toe-in surfing.
So then you have the third person on another jet ski, just watching out and making sure that the other two don't die. Right. So if they run into trouble, they go and rescue them or whatever else it is. One of the key things that our head of HR, Sheza Carter, figured out was that you can actually use data to figure out what the right kind of personality is. So HR land has tons of tools. There's something called the predictive index. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's one of these personality things. It tells you like what kind of archetype you are for this and that. And what's very obvious to us was that there's a certain archetype that works well for the person on the surfboard, somebody who is an adventurer, go get it, not afraid of whatever. Somebody who is the towing. The first jet ski person that is towing in the other person, that's a different personality type too, like the same kind of risk profile, but they have to be comfortable that they're not in the limelight. And then the third one is the worst case scenario person, right? And so part of the whole point of TRM, now again, I don't know if that's the right name for the category, but what the problem that I'm articulating is in a hypergrowth situation, we're doubling the size of the company. How do you get the right teams built together without, having to, we put the wrong teams together and this and that. And that part of how we did that was with data to kind of figure out there's certain profiles that fit well in certain roles and in certain combinations. And so just like CRM uses data to analyze like how much more you can cross-sell or the lifetime value or this or that, TRM has that same opportunity. I'm not convinced that, clear, not clever. If you told me TRM in a vacuum, I don't know that I would know what that is. If you said it was like CRM, I would still be like, well, what does the T stand for? So I think there's some work, at least for me, like I know exactly what problem you're trying to solve for. And I know that the market exists and that there's real value to it, especially in a hypergrowth situation. But I'm not sure if piggybacking off of CRM to TRM is the right answer, because I think the problem is very specific. It's not for everybody. It is for organizations that sell in, teams are a big function of them. How do you assemble high growth teams, high functioning teams? How do you use data to do that? And so my hunch is that teams versus T might be a new, or might need to be more prominently featured. You may get to the point where TRM is the shorthand, but I don't think you can jump straight from CRM to TRM without explaining what the actual category and the problem you're solving for is. My 2 cents.
Thanks, Eddie. All right, we have time for one, maybe two more. Anthony asked, does category design work for luxury brands? If so, what are your favorite examples? I'm just going to say Tesla for you, Eddie, because that's pretty obvious, right?
Not only does category design work, without it, just to put it bluntly, they're fucked. Because you need to think that paying $250,000 for a car is a great idea before you'll consider paying $250,000 for a car or a watch or pick your luxury. But I'm going to pass the puck to the Obi-Wan Kenobi of consumer category design.
No, it's probably even more so in luxury. I mean, you saw, Kat mentioned Tesla, like you saw Elon Musk and Bernard Arnault, the owner of LVMH. So they just got together for lunch in Paris. So you had the two wealthiest people in the world. And, you think about, all of those brands, right? Tesla, Louis Vuitton, LVMH just bought Tiffany, right? All of it is category design, right? It is the whole kind of, you think about the LVMH
Eddie,
products.
Tell the diamond story. Remember that diamond story we wrote about early on? Most people don't know this.
Yeah, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're way smarter than me.
No, you're putting me on the spotlight to see if I can remember what we actually wrote about.
Okay, well, why don't I start?
It was about De Beers.
Yeah.
Go.
So I can't remember how many years ago it was. Maybe somebody can chat GPT while we're talking, but it's been in less than the last 100 years. So diamonds were not sought after. I believe, am I remembering this right? Maybe somebody check me. Was it pearls? Anyway, whatever it wasn't diamonds, and diamonds weren't, particularly valued. And then De Beers showed up, and De Beers is essentially a category design and category management and growth organization. And they started promoting this. And with marketing, they started promoting that it should be 2 months' salary. That's why when you ask anybody, how much should a dude spend on a diamond? The answer is 2 months' salary, because De Beers taught them that. Anyway, the value of diamonds shot up over time, essentially because of category design. And now, as we wrote about, their value is starting to decline because of category design.
But just to build on that, Christopher, you always say this: everything we value, we've been taught to value. And what category design is, it's a systematic process to teach about what value is in the future versus in the past. And if you think about all luxury goods, right? And they come in all shapes and sizes, right? One of the ones, as a father of daughters, and one of my old clients, American Girl, absolutely a luxury toy doll brand, 10x more expensive. And now you think about all of these companies, right? American Girl in particular, they weren't mercenaries about it. It was a missionary aspect. It was like, these dolls aren't 10x more expensive because we're trying to gouge the consumer. It's like, no, we're trying to educate young girls about history, about the history of women, that it is not a Barbie. It is not about being, beauty and all of these types of things and whatever. It is much, much more than that, it is about so much more about teaching history, family, and where the backstory of where each of these dolls come from. They curate them. They create the experiences. You have the matching pajamas and the dolls for the girl and the this and that. And like, the retail experience is like from Mars. If you've never been, it's kind of an amazing thing, but it is all designed, and all of it is designed to teach you to value something that you did not know had value beforehand. But in particular, they were solving a massive problem, which is like, I don't want little girls when they're playing to be reinforced with these things of you have to look a certain way and fit these certain proportions. I want little girls to play, enjoy each other's company, enjoy generational time with their moms and aunts and grandmothers, but also to learn about history, to learn about themselves and be taught what they should be valuing, which is their own self-worth, their esteem, their intellect, and their work ethic.
Awesome. We had a question. So if it works for luxury, does it work for nonprofits?
It's the only thing that works for nonprofits.
Yeah, I mean, your option is guilt or something, the mission, right? I mean,
oh yeah, I've been guilted. Been guilted by a lot of nonprofits. But continue on.
No, I mean it's absolutely the case, right? It is one of the things that I have to see. I did it for my church. I'm not sure if I can publish. I'm pretty sure I can, but like right now they're doing a sermon series called Genetically Generous. And one of the things that we figured out was that through some category science is that there are 5 to 6 different archetypes of people who, how they are generous in terms of a not-profit. And that for some, it is, it's about the mission. You put something that makes me cry, makes me mad, makes me, sad or whatever, I will give to that, right? And for others, it is, on the opposite end of it, it's a little less altruistic and it's much more about like, it's about legacy. If you put my name on something, you throw a fancy dinner, put my name in a program, then I'll give, it'll make me feel good like I did something with it. But then there are people kind of in between. There are people who are, I will give if you tell me very specifically where it's going to go because I'm fearful of fraud and I don't want my money to go to waste. There are people who give for any number of reasons. And so the point being is that generosity, there's many problems to be solved for there. Whether it's I just want the mission, or it's about me, or I want to see that it gets to the right place in the right time, or that there are very specific things that I have a cause that I want to support, that I want to advocate for, and that I think that for nonprofits, designing a category around that super and what problem they're trying to solve for is that generosity is one thing, and not-for-profits obviously rely on generosity to function. But what people don't realize is that there are problems to be solved for everywhere. And that within generosity, there are subsectors of problems that you double click on of like, I don't like giving when I have been taken advantage of and that I don't know where my money is going. Or I like giving, but not to this generic mission. I want it to be something specific. And that category design is so, so, so important. Like I think about Christopher John's Crazy Socks. Perfect category design, very, very specific niche problem, solving for his son who had, what was the different that he had?
If my memory serves, it's Down syndrome.
Down syndrome, right? And so, it's one thing, hey, support Down syndrome, that's one thing. John's Crazy Socks, you might, if you like Crazy Socks, you can, buy this stuff and enjoy it, and you support Down syndrome. Like, there's so many unlimited ways to design a not-for-profit in a way that I think spurs even more generosity than what has traditionally been thought of.
Want to hear a story?
Please.
So we have a situation here in Santa Cruz, on the west side of Santa Cruz, where one of the major roads, or the major road that goes along the coastline, a section of it got destroyed in January during the storms. And it's now unpassable. And so there's a lot of debate about what to do. And the debate had been, what do we do with the road? And the position of many, including the Coastal Commission, was what we're doing is, quote, managed retreat. Now listen to the languaging in this, because this really matters. It's very powerful. And what managed retreat means is we're going to let Mother Nature do whatever she wants to do on the coastline, and whatever happens, happens. And we all have to deal with it. That's generally been their position. Okay. So the debate that emerges is, should we or shouldn't we repair the road? Because if we don't repair the road, it's going to be a 1-lane road instead of what it is now, which is a 2-lane road. So this is the conversation that the community is having. And everybody's arguing about it. Well, the former mayor and a couple other civic leaders, with my brother from another mother, co-author of Play Bigger, Al Ramadan, come together and they think, we're not having the right conversation. We need to reframe this, name it, and claim it. So they go to work. And the short answer is they get all of the maps and aerial photographs that show what that part of the coastline used to look like starting in 1920. And they show how much these megastorms have destroyed it. And so they show there's been this significant pushback. And then they do an economic study to show what's going to happen as this continues to play out, because all of the beaches and surf breaks that are famous in this area essentially go away or change in very material ways. And it no longer is what it is. And there's meaningful economic and social impact if that happens. Okay, so they figure all this stuff out. And then they come up with an entire new point of view. And they say, well, this part of California is every bit as beautiful as Yosemite. And it needs to be protected in the way we protect Yosemite and treasured. And just like Yosemite, there's a road that gets you in and out of Yosemite. And so if we want people to have access to this beauty, there needs to be a road. And then they further reframe the conversation, and they declare this area the West Cliff Recreational Area. And they map out everything that happens in this area and how important it is to the community, things that happen in the water and out of the water and the parks. And it's an incredible place. So they declare it as such. And then they say, well, we have a choice now. We can let this treasure go, or now that we know what it looked like in 1920, we can do natural feature restoration. Well, guess what? The city's got a proposal right now to save the West Cliff Recreational Area and to consider whether or not it should do natural feature restoration. And 3 months ago, everybody was fighting over a road, and the Coastal Commission was going to block everything. And now the Coastal Commission's part of creating a different vision for the future of Santa Cruz. If you don't frame, name, and claim the category of thinking, the quote real problem, it's not about a road. It's, do we want this part of Santa Cruz to exist for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren or not? That's the conversation, right? And so for a nonprofit, the framing of the problem and the development of a point of view that causes people to move and rally, and people who heretofore had not known, or people who heretofore had not collaborated because they thought they were at odds with one another, and now they realize there's some shared value because they have a new shared vision. That's legendary category design at the nonprofit, at the social change level.
Well, I think the audience has spoken. That story was worth it. And I think that that is a good place to end. We still have almost 70 of you all on. So thanks again for joining. We're planning on doing more of these in the future. We have a lot of stuff up and coming, but we really appreciate you all being here for our very first webinar.
We love you.
We love you all.
We do.
Without you, we're just talking to ourselves.
And recording it and transcribing it and writing about it. All right. Bye, everyone. Keep an eye out for
Thanks,
the
Lisa.
recording and the deck
Thanks,
in
Ben.
your email.
Thanks, William. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Bye.